All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back for another episode of The Author's Tea. I am your host and the creator of The Author's Tea, Kristen R. Harris. And I am so glad that you have joined us for another episode. Those of you who are watching on the replay, welcome. And those of you who will be joining live, hey, super excited about tonight's episode. We are a few minutes late. I apologize. We were having a few technical difficulties. You guys know how technology can be. But I am excited to get into this conversation with my very special guest. But before I do, wanted to remind those of you who know what the author's tea is and those of you who don't exactly what the author's tea is all about. I believe that there are so many phenomenal female authors who have written some amazing stories, and you need to know them, you need to know their story, and you need to get in tune. So I've opened up my platform to introduce you to these women so that you can support them and you can get to know them and you can read their books. So this is where the authors come to spill the tea on their books and things. You got your mug? Did you remember
I
your
got
mug?
my mug.
Yes, see, she came to spill the tea. So this is my special guest for this evening. This is Sherri Simmons. She is the author of Underneath the Hat, and we'll be getting into that shortly. But Sherri, welcome to the Author's Tea. Thank you so much for agreeing to come. How are you?
I am good. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Sherri, what we like to do here at the Author's Tea is let the author introduce themselves because I feel like nobody can talk about you the way that you can. So
Right.
let us know, who is Sherri?
Cherie is a wife, a stepmom, a daughter, a sister, an aunt. I'm an educator. I just finished my 14th year. Today was the last day of school, thank God.
Oh, congratulations. You made
Thank you. Yes.
it.
I've been teaching for 14 years inside the classroom as an administrator, as an assistant principal. I just wrapped up 2 years as a STEM coach, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. I'm married to Vincent. I have a fur baby, which is a beagle named KB. And I have a stepdaughter who lives in Florida. And I can say I'm living my best life right now.
All right, girl, you better live your best life. You wear a lot of hats. So when you say
Yes,
underneath the hat, you got a lot of hats on your head. Actually,
definitely.
interestingly enough, my husband is actually a STEM coordinator for a CPS school. So I understand
Really?
that life. Yes, he's at
Okay.
Melody STEM on the west side. So
Okay.
yep. So I understand that life. You speaking my language a little bit.
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, it's so nice to meet you. So nice to have you. And as I said, you are the author. I don't know if you said that in all those things you were saying, but you are an author of
Yes.
Underneath the Hat. And just kind of give us a brief synopsis of what this book is about and how it came about.
This book is about the character Amanda Jane and her husband Campbell, and it basically goes through her life as a first lady and how she learned to rediscover who she was through Campbell's infidelity. And it's based on a true story, my true story. And so I wrote this book basically as therapy for me to get over my first marriage and all of the things that came out while being married. And so it really serves as a way to let women out there know that they're not alone,
Mhm.
because I felt like I was going through so many things by myself. Because being a first lady, wearing a hat, you are basically trained and taught, okay, everyone can't be in your business
Mhm.
because of the position that you're in within the church. So I didn't have the opportunity to open up to a lot of people to share the things that I was going through. And I hid it very well from family and friends until God was like, no, your story needs to be told because your testimony can be someone's breakthrough. And so that's been the whole purpose of writing the book. It started out as therapy for me, but it ultimately ended up being therapy for other women as well.
Wow. Did you find it difficult? initially or even through the process to pen this story? Because this is a very personal story. Did you find it difficult?
Very much so. I was so fearful of what people would think, what people would say. And at the time, I was still trying to reconcile with my ex-husband. And so I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I don't want to say too much. I don't want to ruin other people's situation. But God told me this is your story.
Right.
And to once I started opening up and sharing, so many people have come to me and said, I didn't know you were going through that. I've been through that too. But I never knew how to say anything. So I've just been riding this wave of being open and honest about my story and seeing how many people are actually out there living through some of the same things underneath the hat.
How has the reaction from people who know your story, who know you personally, how has that reaction been?
Well, a lot of people were shocked that I opened up about it because I'm an introvert.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to come out and have these conversations and tell as much as I told, especially coming from my first marriage and the way I was controlled and manipulated, family was kept at a distance, friends were kept at a distance. So for me to be able to come out and share my story, people are like shocked that
Mm-hmm.
for one, I'm opening up, and secondly, that it even all those things actually happened. They
Mm-hmm.
saw some of the things and no one said anything, but to actually hear of most of the things that I went through, people were shocked that I'm still here, that I'm not behind bars, that he's still in one piece.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a lot of reaction, but mainly people being shocked at the fact that I dealt with it for so long and that I actually had to deal with it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Cherie, this is the first time we're actually quote unquote meeting. And I
Hmm.
was reading your story and I was like, oh, wait a minute
Yeah.
now. So I felt some shock as well, not even knowing you, but just knowing that you're a woman and you had to endure some of these things. So I want
Hmm.
to kind of get into the story. I like to talk around the story because I don't like to give too much about the book
Right.
because the idea is that I want people to go and buy the book. But I know very early on you talk about the relationship with your mom and your
Hmm.
stepdad. And so those people who know you very intimately, knowing that you saw this type of behavior growing up with your mom and your stepdad, one would think that maybe as you got older, you would refuse to accept anything that looked remotely like that. Why do you think you ignored those red flags?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, I think that subconsciously, because I was around it so much, that was the normal for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the book, I talk about Amanda Jane's father and how he had an issue with drug abuse, and then I talk about her mom and the relationship that she had with her stepdad and how he was abusive and a womanizer as well. And so I think subconsciously, and I had to learn this through therapy, that subconsciously we go through things and it's something that we're used to seeing, something we're used to being a part of. And so we tend to flock towards
Mm-hmm.
those things.
Yeah.
And there was one time in my therapy session where my therapist gave me a questionnaire and she asked me about the top three relationships I had in my life. And I had to tell the positive, the negative, how I reacted to certain things. And when I plugged it into different scenarios, a lot of the negative that I saw were things that I looked for or that drew me to my
Mm-hmm.
first husband.
Mm-hmm.
So I think so often they tell us as parents, do as I say, not as I do. But the Bible says we walk by faith and not by sight.
Yes.
So I'm like, it's a contradiction of, okay, do I do what you say? Do I do what I see? And so because I saw it and nothing was done to change it, I assumed that that was okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so going into my first marriage, those same things that someone else would see as red flags were actually normal for me
Right.
because of the relationship that I saw with my mom and my stepdad.
Yeah, I think that that's so on point because many times we're just so used to things, we get comfortable in dysfunction. We like it's
Mm-hmm.
so normal to us because this is just what I'm used to. As I
Right.
was reading your book, I know you made a comment about him not him telling you that he does not compromise very early on in marriage. And I was like, yikes, for someone to
Mm-hmm.
to verbalize that I don't compromise and for you to say, okay, well, I'm still willing to make all the compromises because that's what I read when I read your book. I read that he told you that he didn't compromise, but you were making so many compromises on your end.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, man, to get to that point, as you said, it has to just be normalized behavior for you to
Yeah.
think that that's okay.
Yeah. I saw that a lot with my mom. Of Actually, my first husband and my stepfather are the mirror image of each other.
Wow.
And I didn't realize that until I wrote the book and started opening up and building a better relationship with my mother, that we actually married the same man. And
Wow.
it was because of things in her life with her relationship with her dad that caused her to see those things. So again, like you said, normalized behavior. And my stepdad did not like my first husband when we were dating. But I didn't realize it until I got older and started reflecting why.
Mm-hmm.
Because he saw some of the same things and traits that he had inside of him. So
Yeah.
even though he was doing those things to my mom, he was able to say, no, she doesn't need to be with him because I see some of the same things that I'm actually doing.
Right, right. And then he
Hmm.
knows that behavior. He knows what it leads
Yes,
to. So
right.
as you tell this story about, you all getting married, of course you journey through leading up to the wedding day and
Hmm.
how you met and everything. But what I found really interesting was the wedding day itself.
Hmm.
And you tell this story about you guys actually getting robbed, and I won't get into all the details, but I actually, when I read that, I said, man, it kind of resonated with me because I know a young lady on her wedding day went through something very similar. And
Hmm.
then a few years later, she got a divorce. And she said to me, you know what? I know that that was God. Like that was a sign. Like who gets robbed on their wedding day? And she said, that was just further confirmation from God for what he had already told me. So I want to ask you, Sherri, did you
Hmm.
ever feel like you were doing something that God didn't tell you to do?
Ooh, uh, Kristen, I can say I had no idea
Okay.
because when we met, I was 16. He was my first real boyfriend. And he came at a point in my life where everything was in turmoil in my home. So he was like a safe haven for me. And he knew that, so he played on those things that I didn't have and made sure that he was supplying them for me so that he can basically create the person that he wanted in me, which was to be a minister's wife and a first lady.
Mm-hmm.
So to be in the chaos of my home with my mom and my stepdad going through what they were going through, and then to have this person who's taking me places and buying me things and showing me things I've never seen before, it's like, oh, okay, well, I
Mm-hmm.
can have this. And then being 16 and him being my first real boyfriend, I'm like, okay, well, this is how it's supposed to be. So I was like in love. I was smitten. And I can admit now that I was very naive,
Mm-hmm.
and so I can see why he focused on me because I was an easy target.
Mm-hmm.
And once we got married, I was just so excited because things weren't, I didn't have a good relationship with my mom at the time. My dad had his issue with his drug abuse. So I didn't really have anyone that I could turn to except my first husband. And so it was like, okay, he can do no wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We only had one issue during our courtship, and I was like, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
because I had that normalized behavior of all what I saw with my mom and stepdad. Well, he's not doing that. So with this little thing he did, we could work through that. But I don't want to lose this comfort that I have with being with him and all the things that I'm getting because I wasn't getting it at home.
Yeah. And then you guys were really young. So, I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot that you can't even see at that age. You
Mhm.
know, you're like you said, you're just naive, and not
Mhm.
that's a bad thing, because at 16 we don't really expect you to know it all. I know we think we
Right.
know it all at 16,
Right.
but we don't expect you to. I think reading your story, and one thing that stood out to me was how different the worlds were that you two came from.
Mhm.
And I think, from my perspective, that really impacted the 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 dynamics of your
Dynamic. Yep.
relationship. Absolutely. Because he comes from this home with this grandfather who's out working hard, and he knows when he gets home the grandmother has taken care of the house, she has food on the table.
Mhm.
And for you, you know, your mom worked, and she did what she was supposed to do, you know, or what she thought she was supposed to do. And so that's what you saw. So when you
Mhm.
guys combine your worlds, you know, they collide as opposed
Yes.
to coming together very cohesively. Um, I guess I want to know from you, like, because when I read your story, you said that he wanted you to be fully dependent on him. And that's
Mhm.
just not something you wanted. And I know there's a lot of women who like, girl, please, you know, if a
Mhm.
man want to take care of me, take care of me. Like,
Right.
how, what was that like for you? Like, why was that such a struggle for you? Or just, you know, tell me your thoughts on that.
I can say that I was not taught how to be a wife. I was taught how to work.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing my mother get up and put on her skirt and her stockings and her white socks and gym shoes and have her pumps in her bag and go downtown to work at the law firm and then come back home. And my dad was there. So my work ethic comes from my mom, of seeing her get up and hustle and grind every day. That's what I was used to doing. So I never really saw her be a wife because my father was there. And my other family members were divorced, so I never really saw them be wives either, my grandmothers. So I just only knew how to work. And going into a relationship where he wanted me to be there cooking and cleaning and making sure food was on the table at 5 o'clock. Well, I don't get off the floor. You
Mm,
don't get off the floor. When I got married, I was fresh out of college. I graduated with my degree in May. We got married in July. So
wow,
I went
that's a
from a
lot.
dorm room to a home to being someone's wife within 2 or 3 months. And I focused strictly on my career because, again, that's all I learned from my mom was how to work
Mm-hmm.
and how to pay the bills and how to take care of making sure that everything was paid. Whereas my father was the one that was there for us, helping us with homework, making sure the uniforms were ready, making sure food was on the table. So, like you said, our dynamics were different. And because we were so young, we didn't know we need to surround ourselves with people who have been doing this for years. We need to surround ourselves with other married couples. We need to figure out what works for us. And so now that I'm married again, I came to the table with a different mindset because I learned from the first one. So yes, his upbringing is different from mine, but what do we want to create? What do we want our relationship
Yeah.
to look like, and not based it on what someone else is doing?
So speaking of the impact that, you know, being married previously has had on this marriage,
Hmm.
one, after going through all of that, how easy was it for you to accept wanting to be married again? Was that a journey for you?
I didn't want to be. I did not want to be, and I can honestly say that I am married now because of God. I told God, look, I'm not going to look for anybody. I really don't want to do this. If I'm supposed to be married, you need to drop him off on my front door, at my front door with a bow.
With a sign?
And that's basically, and that's exactly what he did with Vince. I met Vince at church. Vince chased me for months, and we ended up having a conversation over text message, and we've been together ever since. But I never went looking for anybody. I was like, my world was turned upside down after the first one
Mm-hmm.
because he was my first real one. And then all the things that led to it, it wasn't just one little, oh, he made a mistake, oh, we grew apart. It was multiple layers of things. And for
Mm-hmm.
that to be the first real relationship you have and for it to end the way that it did something to me emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. Like I had to go to counseling. I was in therapy. It took a lot for me to even get to the point to where I even was considering marrying Vince. And honestly, even up until the day we got married, I'm like, okay, Lord, I know this is you because it's not me. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
really don't want to do this because I did not want it to end the way that it did. And the first time, and even being married, we'll be celebrating 3 years in July. There was so many times during our 3 years where it was things were being triggered. I
Mm-hmm.
would just see him doing something that would remind me of the first one. And so I had to continue going to therapy to work on those triggers because now I'm in a new relationship and
Mm-hmm.
I was trying my best not to bring the old baggage into the new one. But when you're not completely healed
Healed.
from the first one, then that tends to happen. But because I knew that this was something that God had put together and I loved Vince, and
Mm-hmm.
I knew that we should be together, I was willing to work on it. So I always had to tell myself the same energy that you were willing to give the first one, knowing what you knew, you need to give this to the second one too.
No, knowing what you
So
know, right?
exactly. Yes.
How has does your husband, does Vince help you to unpack some of that baggage? Like if he realizes that something may be a trigger, even though it may be to no fault of his own, is he
Hmm.
gracious enough to help you unpack that baggage, or is that just something that you work through yourself in therapy?
Yes, we've actually gone together a couple times,
Oh, good.
and we watch. I watch a lot of Iyanla Van Zant, and so I try to get him to watch it with me. It doesn't always go well, but but we do. We have very open, authentic, transparent conversations. Like I tell him, okay, he's read the book. I've told him numerous times all the things that happened, and he was even angry at the things that I had gone through and held a grudge against the first husband. And so when things come up, I'm able to have that conversation with him and be like, okay, that's a trigger.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to sit and have a conversation about it. So he is definitely willing to unpack some things. And I look at him sometimes and I'm like, man, you a strong dude. Like, because
You
when
like
I
to deal
came
with
to
me and
you,
all this mess, okay?
ugh, it was rough.
Well,
And he stuck by me.
well, that's good. God knew exactly what you needed for,
Hmm.
and he knew that he wanted to give you what was right,
Right.
and he knew the person who would have to travel that with you and to help you
Hmm.
unpack that. So I praise God that you got what you needed.
Thank you.
So underneath the hat, this title,
Hmm.
I think the first time I read underneath the hat in the book is when it's after you guys have separated
Hmm.
and you go to church and you wear this big hat because you're still the first lady, and you
Yep.
wear this big hat and you're literally hiding under this hat, hoping that no one can see the anguish, the pain, the despair on your face.
Hmm.
Um, but you also wear a big hat, which is I thought was funny. You wear this big hat because later on you find out about the mistress, and you wear a big hat
Yeah.
to the mistress's grandmother's funeral.
Yeah.
I said this is all kind of petty up in here.
It was.
Um, but why? I guess my question is why? Why do you think that you worked so hard to put up this facade for so long? That
Hmm.
why did you think you had to save face and hide behind this hat? Was it because of the the religious aspect of it, or was it because you were just really trying to protect him?
Ooh, I was really trying to protect him. I was that was the reason why I moved out on that Saturday, July 27th, and the very next morning I was at church.
Mm,
It's the exact reason why I had come up with the lie for if in case someone saw me on the other side of Chicago, wondering why I was over there when they knew where we lived. I already had a story ready,
mm,
um, telling them I was going to pick up my sister who worked at the Popeyes on Stony Island. So I had a story ready because I was ultimately trying to protect his image, make sure that no one knew what was going on, make sure his ministry wasn't tainted. And like I say on the back of the book, I was trying to protect someone who really wasn't protecting me.
yeah, and I what's so interesting to me when I hear you say this is you were working so hard to protect him, not even to protect yourself.
Right.
Like you were putting up this facade, you're hiding under this huge hat to protect, like you said, someone who is not thinking about protecting you.
Mm-hmm.
Where were you mentally to even carry on like that?
I realized after self reflection and going to therapy that I had low self esteem. And I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned that in the book. I thought a lot of us think we have high self esteem until we get into a situation that's like, no, you really don't.
Mm-hmm.
Because my life revolved around him.
Yeah.
It was, what would he say? What would he think? Should I cut my hair? Should I wear this? He'll like that he'll like that hat. So it was always about him. And that was my ultimate goal, was to make him happy, to make
Mm-hmm.
his ministry soar. And that was really the driving force of our relationship. I Even though I had a degree and I was in the field of education, we had spent so much time pushing him forward in his ministry that my success was an afterthought. And
Mm-hmm.
because he was this big shining light in a room and knew how to draw people to him, I kind of dimmed myself in the background and in a corner because he was the life of the party.
Mm-hmm.
So I never really knew who I was because I was so busy trying to help him to be who he wanted to be.
Mm-hmm. And what I
Yeah.
feel like I read in the story is that you were busy trying to help him be comfortable because I don't think he was comfortable with how powerful you were. When you
Mm.
talk about your education and your career and all these moves you're making and this money you're making, I don't, from what I read, from my
Mhm.
perspective, he was not comfortable with who you were. And so you were dimming your light to make him comfortable, not just to let him shine, but to make him comfortable because
Mhm.
he wasn't really comfortable with the force that you were as well.
Mm. And I've been, after going through all that I've been through and having the platform that I have now, Kristen, I've realized that a lot of times we as women don't realize how powerful we really are,
Mm-hmm.
and that we end up in relationships with people, trying to make sure that they, like you said, are comfortable because of their upbringing. He
Mm-hmm.
had issues at home, so let me see how I can make it so he doesn't feel like that. Like the Ike and Tina Turner movie.
Yeah.
She wouldn't leave him because of what he had gone through. So he badmouthed her, he hit her, but because she knew that he had the trigger of people leaving him, she tried her best to not do it, even though it made her uncomfortable, and
Yeah.
she ended up being hurt in the process. So I think I was really trying to make sure that he had a better life as an adult than he had as a kid. And so anything that I could do to make it easy for him to not feel that same way, that I was willing to do it.
And you know what? I think that that's an admirable stance. I mean, for you to feel that way as his wife, but I think where it gets tricky or sticky
Mm-hmm.
is he willing to do all of that for you? You know what I mean? So
Exactly. Yep.
we should want to provide better experiences, especially if you've had trauma as a child, or your experiences were more negative than positive, or whatever it is. But are they willing to reciprocate?
Right.
Is this a two-way street, or am I the one, as you said, making all the compromise while you're telling me out of your mouth you don't do compromise? That's just not what I do.
Right.
One of the things I like about the book is at the end of every chapter, you tell us pretty much your lessons learned. And I'm a big lessons learned person. In my book, God put me up on game, and that's what the game is. All the lessons I take away from those situations,
Right.
because I feel like, I don't ever lose if I learn.
Exactly.
So, and at the end of separation, the chapter separation, you talk about how you really grew up as a result of that separation. How do you think this whole entire ordeal, in what ways did it help you to mature? Like the whole situation. How did you grow up?
I think my growing up came because I had a better relationship with God. I mentioned in the book that I knew who He was, but He wasn't in me. I I speak in my web series underneath the hat about religion versus relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I think as a kid we get so used to doing routine, which is the religious part of it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not until you go through some things that you form a relationship with God. So
Absolutely.
I was going through the religious aspects of going to church, wearing the hat, being the first lady, being on the deaconess board, helping the kids with Sunday school. That was the religious part. But I didn't
And I
have a
was going out just
relationship
reading
with
all
him.
that. Okay. I was like, this
Yeah.
is a lot of jobs.
Yes. Yes. But that was the religious part of it because it was routine. That's what I grew up doing. Since I was
Mm-hmm.
10 years old, I was on every ministry. I was singing, I was dancing, I was an usher. So, but I didn't have a relationship with God. My relationship was with Him.
Right.
And so God revealed to me, I'll never forget, I was in my condo and I could see the Navy Pier fireworks from my window.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a Wednesday night, and I'm sitting in the living room on the couch, and he told me, "Now where is he?" And I'm like, "That's true. He not here." Because I always thought everything that I accomplished was because of him.
Mm-hmm.
And so here I am in the bigger and better, and he's nowhere around.
Mm-hmm.
And so God revealed to me that I had to remove him from your life to put you where you needed to be. Because if I hadn't done it in the way that I had done it with the people I had done it with, you never would have left.
Yeah. Wow.
And I know I never would have left. So the biggest thing that came from this whole thing is that I have a better relationship
And that's the
with
best thing
God.
ever. Yes.
Yeah.
So kudos to you for getting that, from taking
Yeah.
that away from this. So we read almost the entire story, never
Hmm.
knowing the person who's narrating the story. And it's not
Right.
like until almost the end where we officially meet Amanda Jane.
Hmm.
Why did you structure it like that?
I wanted people to feel like they were Amanda Jane.
Okay.
So I didn't want people to feel sorry for Amanda Jane. I wanted every emotion, every hurt, um, attitude, run in with the law, anything that happened in the book, I wanted them to feel like they were in the seat as Amanda Jane. I wanted them to feel like this was them telling the story. That's
Mhm.
why I was very particular in the editing process that they didn't change the voice. They didn't change some of the words that were used because when I wrote this book, I didn't write it down. I recorded it on my phone.
Oh, okay.
And so as things were happening, I recorded it. So the emotion that's felt from when I speak it is how it was typed out.
That
So,
makes sense, because as I
mhm,
was reading it, I actually said, I was speaking to my assistant, Janine, and I said to her, I said, this book is very conversational. Like
mhm,
somebody is just telling me their story. And
yeah,
so now that you said that, I can totally see that.
mhm. So I wanted people to feel like they were in the driver's seat, right along with Amanda Jane. And I love roller coasters, so I wanted to make sure that I added the right parts, but
Hmm.
that it all fit into what her story was.
Okay, nice, nice, nice. I like that strategy. It worked.
Thank you.
So one of the quotes that I shared when I was, sharing that we would be doing this live was that
Mm-hmm.
the mistress was at the wedding. And let me tell
Yes.
you this. There was a quote that even topped that, okay?
Oh.
When you dropped the real bomb in the story, and this is the only spoiler I'm gonna give. But I have
Mm-hmm.
to tell you all this because I was like this, mouth
Yeah.
wide open, jaws dropped. When you said that the mistress's mom was actually in your wedding, I
Mm-hmm.
was like, say what now? And you said it again, like you heard me. Read it again.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because I literally said, say what now?
Mm-hmm.
That was like OMG. So it's like I shared that the mistress was at the wedding. That's one thing, she's sitting in the pews, but yeah, she's sitting in the pews because her mama is in the wedding.
Yep.
Like when you put all of that together, what was going through your mind?
I I was like, I tell my sister this. I said I was living a Lifetime movie. We watched those Lifetime movies. We're like, this stuff could never happen. But I realized, oh my God, this is a Lifetime movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could not. I'm like, how did he have time to do any of this? Because we were always together.
Yeah.
But God started revealing different things at different times when he knew I could handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest drop bomb, I won't give too much, was when I found out in the WTF chapter about people who had been around me for years that were involved
Yeah.
in this whole web of deceit. So I just couldn't understand like why and how did you find the time to do all this?
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
was just shocked at the fact that it had happened and that I had missed so much of it.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because I was so focused on my career and then trying to help him that there were just things that I wasn't paying attention to because I wasn't expecting him to do the things that he had done.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I commend you for coming out of that stronger, like you said, having your relationship stronger with God and just knowing
Mm-hmm.
who you are. And I think that's what I took away from Amanda Jane, which is why I kind of thought that we didn't meet her officially until the end because I felt like she didn't know who she was until the end. Like we
Mm-hmm.
didn't know who she was because she didn't know who she was. And so
Right.
at the end of the book, this is when we're finally introduced to Amanda Jane. If you could say you wrote this book for one specific person, who would that
Hmm.
person be?
If that would it would have to be Amanda Jane. I wrote this book for every woman out there who's ever been hurt, lied to, manipulated, controlled in some form, made to dim her light so others could shine. I wrote this book for them. It ultimately started out as therapy, but ultimately it's been a platform for a lot of women to have conversations around the different things that Amanda Jane went through. So I can say I wrote it for every Amanda Jane that's out there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for having the courage to share your story so that you can write it for the other Amanda Janes and they can read it and get to their place of healing and freedom and deliverance or whatever it is that they need to arrive at. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
One of the things that we ask everyone who comes through the author's tea, because I believe the hashtag writers read, what
Hmm.
is one of the greatest books that you have ever read that you would recommend that everyone else go and read?
Ooh, I love Terry McMillan.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say any book that she's written, but I like the one A Day Late, A Dollar Short.
Oh, yes, 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 yes.
Yeah. So I just like books that, just like my book, makes you feel like you're in the seat, where you can react to the book. You
Mm-hmm.
can curse while you're reading the book. I've had people tell me I've had to throw the book across the room when I read Underneath the Hat because it was just too much. So I like those books that make you want to keep reading, those page turners that you can sit and read and not get up until you finished.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely get that when I read Terry McMillan's work.
Love it. You know what? Actually, this cover is kind of giving me Terry McMillan vibes now that you said that.
Yeah.
Yes, this is
Yep.
Terry McMillan. Yes, yes, yes.
Hmm.
Love it, love it. Well, Sherri, tell us how we can buy your book, how we can
Hmm.
connect with you.
Okay. Well, you can buy my book on Amazon or wherever books are sold underneath the hat. I also have a website, sherrisimmons.com, SHERRI Simmons, SIMMONS.com. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, Sherri Simmons. I also have my foundation for young girls, young ladies at all times, or you can find me on my pages underneath the hat.
Wonderful. Listen, guys, get in tune with Sherri Simmons, author of Underneath the Hat. As she said, this book is for any woman who has experienced any type of pain from relationships, just figuring out how to navigate that, how to get through it, how to move past so that you can discover yourself as Amanda Jane did. And as Sherri has shared on here, like she's now thriving in a healthy marriage when she thought that she would never be married again because of the things that she
Hmm.
had gone through. So definitely pick up this book, get it for someone who you may know who needs to read it. Share it, share it, share it. Underneath the Hat by Sherri Simmons. Sherri, I am so honored that you spent some time with me, that you came down to the author's tea and spilled all the tea on your books and things. I am so appreciative. Thank you so much. I wish you nothing but blessings as you continue to share your story and sell your books and get out here and change these lives by telling your truth. So, thank you so much for that.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Listen, guys, this is the author's tea. I'm super excited that you have joined us. We will be back again in 2 weeks, same time, same place. Our next author up. It's so funny how these books just lining up are all about marriage. I had two
Mm.
weeks ago Dominique McGee. She wrote a devotional, Arise, the devotional for the warrior wives. Then I got you on here with Underneath the Hat. In 2 weeks, I will have Lakia Brandingberg. She's actually dubbed as the wife coach, and the
Oh.
name of her book is Picture Perfect. So I'm super excited. I did not plan that. You know, God just
Hmm.
had his hand all in the way that this is structured. So super excited to have her on in 2 weeks. So guys, come back, check us out. Remember, this is the author's tea where we spill all the tea on our books and things. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Until next time, bye.